All right, thanks, Braden, and thanks everybody for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about getting started with Oracle licensing with software asset management. So I know it's a topic top of mind for a lot of customers, has been for quite a while, and still an area that AnglePoint and ServiceNow can help with. So as part of the content today, if the conversation is forward-looking and the content goes that direction, just know that as we're building out product, we're constantly adjusting roadmap and so forth based on customer feedback, and that it is subject to change. So on the webinar today, we have Matthew Schwartz from AnglePoint, director at AnglePoint, and Rohit Lobo, who's on our product team at ServiceNow. And Matt and Rohit both have 12, 13 years or so of experience each at Oracle. So lots of collective knowledge depth on this webinar, and excited to hear what they can share with us today. And
Great.
So at this point, Matt, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. I greatly appreciate that. Yeah, so my name is Matthew Schwartz. As mentioned, I do lead the Oracle practice here at AnglePoint. I just kind of want to tell you a little bit about AnglePoint, who we are, and just to kick this off. AnglePoint is a full service IT asset management consulting firm. We're here to help our clients really kind of no matter where they are in their ITAM program maturity. We find a lot of our clients have current processes, but oftentimes those processes may not necessarily drive the results that are necessary to move that needle on their maturity scale. So we bring the right expertise to kind of help bring the balance of people, processes, and technology together. Our experience includes things such as helping customers with their IT asset management tool selection and implementation. We bring software publisher licensing experience, which can help you kind of understand the so what of that data that your tools will be collecting. At the end of the day, the tools do a great job when it comes to counting, but sometimes they don't necessarily provide the full visibility of the options for remediation or optimization. And until things such as AI or machine learning fully take over, nothing can really fully replace the knowledge that a subject matter expert has deep understanding of those nuances for publisher licensing can achieve. We can help customers, whether it be a single point in time of project or full managed service, and depending on kind of the specific needs of each customer can be customized for that. So at the end of the day, we really want to help you understand where your risk may be, what can be done about it, and how that software dollars can best be squeezed, as far as possible. Ideally, we really want our clients to only license technology they need and use to run their business. Kind of in a perfect world, it'd be kind of akin to how we pay for our electric and water. It's a nice goal, but in all reality, we're not really fully there yet with software. So if we go to the next slide, we'll kind of talk about our history of AnglePoint, and why we have the credibility to be talking with you today. We actually just celebrated our 12th birthday. Our founders were former KPMG, and we're tired of the limitations of being an auditor. Instead want to kind of be on the proactive side and helping clients. Our focus primarily is around managed services, but many of our clients will start off with a point-in-time project, which will most likely, lead towards building the foundations for a, business case for a broader investment in the ITAM program. We are not a seller, reseller, or auditor for any of our publishers, so we truly are agnostic, and we'll have your best interests at heart. We're a global company. We have over 100 employees, mainly focused in North America and EMEA. We also don't do any outsourcing or offshoring, so all of our consultants are AnglePoint employees. We have deep experience in software licensing. Again, this is helping to answer the so what of what the data that comes out of tools will generate. And from a client perspective, all shapes and sizes across multiple industries. And so here are a few of the alliances and partners that we have logos for as we're going forward. Into the next slide. When it talks about Oracle and AnglePoint, so what is my practice built around? So I do lead the Oracle practice here, and I'm proud to represent a team that has extensive experience, expertise, and credibility. There's a quote here by Werner Heisenberg that says, "An expert is someone who knows some of the worst mistakes that can be made in a subject and how to avoid them." And so when I talk in a couple slides about our background, we've definitely seen a lot of the things that can come at you. So first slide we want to talk about is experience. So we'll go to the next one here. Specifically for my Oracle practice, we tallied up the years that my teams had at Oracle, and it comes up to about 50 years. Those same professionals have over 100 years of consulting experience. For myself, like Ryan mentioned, I was at Oracle for about 13 years. I spent 9 of those years with LMS, License Management Services, and took on a variety of roles while I was there. So next slide, we have about 50 years of experience, but how does that expertise really come into play when it talks about Oracle licensing? Anglepoint has some of the best resources and expertise in industry because we've had individuals who were in key leadership and consulting positions there at Oracle. Similar to our founders, we all left for similar reasons and that we've been there for a while, and we wanted a chance to work with our clients to be help them be more proactive in their management. We've seen and experienced thousands of audits from an Oracle perspective and are able to take that and help customers manage their environments. Ideally at the end of the day, if you were audited, it's just a course of business at that point in time, and really shouldn't be anything that's surprisingly coming up. Next slide I want to talk about is briefly about our organization as a whole and our global credibility around that. We've had engagements, whether they be a small local organization with a handful of servers, all the way up to Fortune 5 companies with managed services, helping them with their ULAs or renewals and overall SAM programs. With that, I think we want to jump into a poll question, right? So the question we have here is going to be, have you been audited by Oracle? And it's just kind of a couple of quick answers. Yes, I have been, or not yet that I'm aware of.
So Matt, Rohit, based on the attendance today, what do you think? How do you think this will shake out percentage-wise? Any guesses?
Oh boy, I would probably say probably around half.
Around half, okay.
Yeah, I would go a little bit higher. Maybe 60%. That's my guess.
Okay. All right, so we'll give everyone a few more seconds to answer the poll, and then we'll see the results. And once again, as we'll show here in a minute, this is Oracle. Audit activity is not unique to Oracle. It's something all software publishers do. Most software publishers do. But Oracle's been around for a while and has a pretty robust audit program, and so most likely have been audited before. But let's take a look at the results. So it looks like not that you're aware of, which is interesting. I would have expected that to be flipped. So yeah, maybe it's a mix of smaller customers or so forth. I guess, Matt, and does that surprise you at all?
It doesn't really. I mean, just from the aspect of having been on the audit side of things, it doesn't. It's not a matter of if, it's kind of more when you'll be audited.
Right.
And it kind of comes down to where and how you get picked up with the privilege of being audited from that. So depends on the audience who's coming into it, but while not surprisingly, I would say it's just a win when it happens.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As a former auditor myself, it's more of when, not if. So yeah, so as I was mentioning, not unique to Oracle in any sense. Most software publishers, are auditing. Here's some of the more frequent ones though in the industry. And as you can see, based on Gartner survey data, at least, this is a sample of a few hundred customers. Oracle does seem to have the most audit volume at the moment, and this shifts over time. Sometimes IBM or Microsoft, will pick up in frequency. But definitely, one of your top publishers, you're going to want to keep your eye on. And so, Matt, I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure, thanks. So based upon that and just kind of looking at what are some of the challenges that come when talking about Oracle, and so we got some great feedback actually from the registration list, and a couple of those were things around virtualization, entitlements, ULAs, the complexity and understanding of the data output. And so I've lumped these into three different types of categories. The first one is related to your agreements. So really it kind of comes down to few questions that I look at. up front is like, do you have all of your agreements consolidated in one platform location? Do you have copies of those available? The agreements, the order documents, the renewals. Have you gone through them and reviewed them? Understand what your customer definition is, any regional limitations, restricted rights, limited rights. And the big one is obviously ULAs. Are you exploring it? There were a couple of registrations that indicated they were doing so, or in the middle of a ULA. Do you have a strategy for it as you approach the termination of that? You're going to be potentially renewing or certifying. I'm a big fan of ULAs if you have a business case for it, and if you can keep on top of it to ensure you're getting your value out of them when it comes due, and that you're working from a position of knowledge as you decide what your next steps are, whether that be to certify or renew. And so that knowledge thing is definitely a key thing. And how do you operate from that? Obviously, number one is knowing your agreements. That's saying, contract is king, and that's very applicable. Then we have to start looking at your actual usage. So what kind of tools do you have in your environment to capture the necessary data points? When talking about databases, for example, are you able to get that granular level of detail, to know what is triggering a usage of an option or a pack? Are you trusting your DBAs to self-report? Are you keeping information in a spreadsheet? Are you just running some basic SQL scripts or commands to pull limited data? Or even do you potentially have a SAM tool in place to collect it? And if so, what are you actually collecting out of that tool? One of the things before I left Oracle, I was helping out on a couple different points, but one of the things is they had a third-party tool vendor program where they were working with vendors to get them verified, such that if Oracle were to come audit them, they could use a tool to augment, apologize, to collect the data and augment the running of scripts through that. One of the things, the warning on that though, is there can be thousands to millions of lines of output coming back in these script results or the data that's being provided over. And so that can be kind of daunting to look through and understand exactly what's happening. This program is still ongoing, and it's going to be one of the topics that we'll talk about here shortly. There's a reason that SAM tools exist, and to collect these data points, as they can be quite extensive, and the experience that's needed to process it, can take years to gain. Like I said, I was at Oracle for about 13.9 at LMS, and it can take you a while to learn the nitty gritty of it. So we talked about agreements. We talked about need to build the ability to collect measurement data, and then what? Well, it's that so what of ensuring compliance, taking those two data points and combining them together. Oracle makes it very easy for people to download and use their products. This was always a fun conversation when I was on the audit side. As really they put the requirement and compliance on a customer. So are you actively monitoring your usage? Databases, are you looking at options and packs? Oracle makes it very easy to use them, and they may have limited or no language that pops up to say, hey, you're using something that needs to be licensed. Are you tracking different types of metrics? Do you have legacy metrics in play, and are you managing those proactively? Are you deploying in a virtualized environment? Again, that was one of the biggest questions that came in on the registration. If so, are you aware of Oracle's partitioning policy and the door that it can open up to require more licenses that you may not have thought you needed? One of the roles when I was at Oracle was to actually review what we referred to as a segmentation or exception approval when it comes to customers who are using, let's just say VM, for example, and you wanted to limit the exposure on that instead of having to license multiple vCenters or multiple clusters, et cetera, how that can be configured. And so, I'm able to take that knowledge and work with customers now to ensure that, okay, you potentially segmented your environment in a way that Oracle would accept, and can ring fence, for lack of better terms, what would be required. Another topic is Java. Since Oracle has transitioned to a subscription model, it's placed more responsibility on the customers to actually know what versions of Java they're running, and if there's a need to have a subscription for it. So if we go on to the next slide here, we've gone through some of the challenges, and it's like, okay, so what do we look for in a tool that can help us, manage our Oracle footprint? Trying to bring it back to what I was talking about in the prior slide, you need a tool that can help you manage your entitlement data centrally. instead of having to go and track down agreements or losing them due to attrition, and trying to figure out, okay, what exactly, okay, we know we're paying support on something, but what exactly do we have rights for? Having copies of all those, having a central repository for them, is a big win. When we go into measurement, we need to know what products they can measure. Had they been verified by Oracle? If so, what is the product coverage that may need additional user input? Do the tools provide details about specific options and packs, or do they just collect basic fingerprints? We have a database enterprise edition here, but you may not know if there are options or packs installed with it. Do you then also have the knowledge to be able to understand what could be unintended or past usage or system level usage? Do the tools have coverage around Java? Do they pull in virtualization details and accounting for Oracle's partitioning policy when it comes to that, such as LPARs or Solaris or VMware? Can the tools query and bring in data from not only on-premise but also cloud? As we're going to various cloud models, what kind of reporting that can be provided by the tool around your usage and consumption? And then ultimately, you really want a tool that can round out your entire SAM program. And if you consolidate all this on a single platform versus having to go and query or get data pulls from various sources and do your own slicing and dicing to try to figure out where things are at, if you can have everything running on a single platform, that definitely helps it out. Next, we'll move into how can Anglepoint help, in this Oracle SAM journey. First off, we have what I would call our gold standard. This is kind of the managed service. This is where we'll take you on a yearly journey, a year at a time, obviously, through of SAM compliance with Oracle. Over the years, we'll help you quantify your Oracle usage, reconcile your entitlements, help you establish best practices. You can help you track trends over the years. If you're doing a ULA and you want to know how you're shaping up through the course of it, we can definitely help you through that. And ultimately just help you manage your overall Oracle estate. The next three points here on this slide are really kind of rolled into the managed service. So as part of that, contract review is where we'll get copies of your agreements and help you understand some of the nuances of them, some of those data points that I mentioned earlier, your customer definition, restrictions or various things like that that are tied into that, regional geographical locations that are restricted, et cetera, and help you get those imported into a tool. Baseline services, this is what we would consider when we actually go and start collecting data around your various Oracle products and come back and say, okay, not only do we understand what you're entitled for, here's what we collected data for usage. We have our own platform, which is called Elevate, and we use this additionally to supplement the SAM tools from processing and project management. So we can assign tasks out over the years and say, okay, each year we're going to pursue and get more data details and assign those to individual users within the organization. And then finally, we get into our optimization services. And this kind of ebbs and flows with reporting. The ultimate deliverable is what we would call a ROAR that comes out of there, risk and opportunity assessment report. So you have an ELP, an effective license position. Here's where we're at. Here's what we're using. And here are things that you can do to potentially optimize your infrastructure going forward. Are there areas of risk that need to be remediated or even licenses potentially acquired to solve some of those? And then finally, we also have another service around ULAs. And this is, again, if you're entertaining ULA in the middle of a ULA, you're coming towards the end of your ULA and you're trying to figure out what the best steps would be. We can come in and help you do midterm assessments, help you through the certification renewal, understand, what your ROI was through the whole course of the term, and then kind of establish what the best course of action would be going forward. So that's our Anglepoint Oracle services. With this, I'll hand over to Rohit to start going through talking about ServiceNow.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. All right. So before we get into the Oracle Publisher Pack, let me just go through a few slides to set some context. So we'll first talk about the status quo and some of the problems that we see when I speak to customers. So software is obviously huge spend, right? And it's a large part of IT. It's the center of an organization's digital transformation journey. Yet, software has been managed by most organizations outside of their ITIL system. So this has put customers in a place where they have to put in a lot of effort to really get visibility into what software they own, where it's deployed, who's using it, how much of it is being used, etc. And so that has really made SAM sort of a reactionary function, right? It's driven out of a point tool that's integrated with the Cmdb, and it depends on the Cmdb data loads, to really get that visibility, to make decisions, to analyze the usage of the software, and even just understand what software organizations own. So and some of the other problems that I see also is that some of these integrations between these tools, between the Cmdb and these tools in which SAM is managed are more data integrations, not really process integrations. And what I mean by that is, if you have to take any action on your SAM data, there's no way to push those actions back and to update the Cmdb. And that again needs manual work to update the Cmdb, to keep it clean, to make sure the Cmdb is healthy and up to date with what's happening within your SAM tool. So really, so Ryan, if you go to the next slide, so that really brings me to the, to why tech investments go to waste. So we already talked about siloed tools. We've talked about manual processes to keep the Cmdbs updated. I wanted to call out a couple of items here. One is, the lack of full visibility of the software is one of the big reasons why tech investments go to waste. When organizations don't have a visibility into what entitlements they own, what software they actually have deployed and how it's being used, when new requests for software come in, it's, the default is to just purchase more software. And so that can lead to waste. I also just want to call out here, reactionary audit fire drills. So with SAM being a reactionary function managed out of a point tool with the lack of sort of real-time visibility, so when an audit or a contractual event happens, SAM teams need to react and get all the data, get an understanding of where the IT estate stands. And a lot of times, the easiest path out of an audit is to kind of renew the contract, or maybe even purchase more software as part of the contract, as part of the settlement fees. And that can really also drive these tech investments going to waste. Yeah, Ryan, if you could go to the next slide. So how can ServiceNow help? So with the Now platform, customers can manage all their IT assets in all the states. So whether you're running software or you're running hardware, whether it's on data center, servers, or on end user devices, or if you're running your software on the cloud with software as a service or platform as a service or infrastructure as a service. So whether it's on-premise or on the cloud, whether it's software or hardware, all of these assets can be managed on the Now platform. And a unique differentiation really here is it's all on one platform, one data model, and one architecture. And what that means is now you can orchestrate work across the enterprise, and you can deliver great experiences to your employees. Thanks, Ryan. So, so again, really running your so with all of your assets on so how does a single platform really help and enable the technology lifecycle? So with your IT asset management solutions, your software asset management, your hardware asset management, running on the Cmdb, pushing data out to other products and consuming data from other products, it really enables automation of all of all of the aspects of the technology lifecycle, whether it's request, fulfillment, deployment, monitoring, service, and retirement. So all these use cases get enabled because you're running your IT asset management solutions on the Cmdb. So I won't talk through each of these use cases, but I'll just call out one of them. So Ryan, if you could go to the next slide.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Rohit, there's SAM tools in the market that do portions of this, right? Maybe they have a request portal where you can order more software, or maybe they can integrate data and feed it to a app rationalization tool at the retire stage. But really on the ServiceNow platform, the magic is those green arrows in between these phases, right? It's the workflows. It's the old people, process, technology. Technology's been around for a long time, but unless you have the processes that you can automate to connect all these functions with that central data store, that's really what makes this automation and workflows possible is those green arrows, the process. As Matt will tell you, right, as a consultant, process is everything, and getting those right processes in place, governance controls is just as important as the technology itself. So sorry, Rohit, you were going to point out one of those use cases there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Ryan. Yeah, actually, it's the whole automation of the technology lifecycle and really going through from the request through the retirement of the asset and enabling all those processes that kind of tie each of those technology lifecycle states is really what the Now platform enables with those workflows. And so, here's an example of like one of those processes that really can be enabled, with the platform. So with legacy SAM, with the legacy SAM tools, and SAM being a reactionary function with integrations, to your Cmdb, if there's for example, a change that needs to happen from your ITSM system, and an operator needs to maybe add compute resources for an ESX server, a lot of times it's not easy for that operator to kind of really understand what the software costs are associated with that change. For example, if you're running an Oracle database and you want to add compute resources to it, it can be quite significant. And without that visibility, a lot of organizations can be blindsided, right? You might have unbudgeted audit fines that that might come up later, and some of these can be in millions of dollars. But with SAM on the platform, the operator, when the IT operator makes those changes, we can surface these software costs before the change is even made. We can show them what that change would entail in terms of additional licensing costs, and they can create workflows to kind of really drive approval for those changes and get approval from the CIO for the budget, the SAM managers for licenses, the procurement team, legal teams, etc., and then go ahead and push those changes in and stay compliant. So if you really think about this, like when you have thousands of changes per year, and how this could scale, it can either be a big problem, if you're managing SAM in a reactionary manner, or it could be, something that, operates smoothly and you stay compliant. And this is some of the, the capabilities that the platform offers you today. And our customers today use this. And there's about 36,000 customer changes going through every hour through our system. So this is one example of just the power of the platform and how SAM sitting on the platform can enable real value for our customers.
And to add to that, Rohit, you touched on the earlier slide about the Cmdb imports and exports, right? It's just a data feed, not a process integration. And so, if that Cmdb data, say you have, 50 million assets in your environment, say you're a global company, how often is that happening? How often are you exporting Cmdb data to your asset, to your SAM tool? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? And what if there are a few hundred changes, between the time of your next export, right? And it's really quick to spin up a VM and drop an Oracle database or some other software on it, right? So you can get out of compliance very quickly. And so having that real time in the same place, right? SAM, where the IT change is made, is super powerful.
Awesome, thanks, Ryan. So Oracle has now verified ServiceNow as a third-party tool vendor. So we'll start to dive in a little bit more into the Oracle Publisher Pack. So what this verification really means is that our customers can now leverage ServiceNow software asset management and discovery to capture and report on installation and usage data, specifically for Oracle databases, Oracle database options, and management packs. So ServiceNow discovery data can be used as a verified source during contractual events such as renewals and audits. So really the value here for our customers is obviously visibility is huge, right? So with these Oracle LMS scripts that are embedded in the product, you can get a download of the data in a nice, neat table. You can analyze that information. It's available, for you to kind of really understand how you're using Oracle in your estate. But going beyond that, it's when I speak to customers, it's also time to value. In a contractual event, which is a renewal or an audit, if you have to run these scripts, customers spend months, cycles, just getting approvals to, run these scripts. From the legal department, from the information security department, et cetera, and so on and so forth. So it's really with the scripts being embedded in the product, it's just, you run your discovery, you put in your applicative credentials, you run your discovery, and then you can export your usage data. So this capability, along with now you also have the software asset management license compliance capabilities. So both these two capabilities together gives you full visibility into your Oracle estate, right? And you can sort of walk into these contractual events and renewals and audits, such as renewals and audits, with confidence, knowing that you have all your data and how you're using Oracle, and you can negotiate from that place. So Ryan, if you can move to the next slide. Cool. So here, diving a little bit more into the Oracle Publisher Pack, we'll just kind of get into some of its capabilities. So the Publisher Pack really gives you a comprehensive view of your Oracle estate, right? Oracle database, we can do discovery, licensing, database options and management packs. Again, these are extra cost options, they need licenses. So we can measure, give you visibility into how you're using these options and management packs. And also middleware WebLogic discovery can give you insight into middleware such as WebLogic that you might be running. So really the Publisher Pack can help you to identify potential savings, over licensed amounts, true ups, what your true up costs are if you need to buy more licenses. You can even optimize your Oracle products out of compliance. If you need to purchase more licenses, you can. If you're over licensed, you can redeploy and reassign licenses to products which are out of compliance. And you can also look at your database options. If you're using a database option that doesn't have a license, you could buy licenses for those. And if you have extra licenses, or if you don't intend to use a certain database option and it shows up as being used, you could work with your DBAs to turn them off. And of course, we have support for Oracle support contracts, license maintenance, downgrades, and we also support the Oracle database metrics, the named user plus, the processor metrics, both on the database as well as the options and management packs. We also support license compliance for Java, both the discovery and compliance for Java, and have support for both the soft partition and the hard partition environments, which I'll kind of walk through in the next couple of slides.
Yeah, I would definitely just jump in here and supplement that. Having support for Oracle's hard partitioning policy is definitely paramount. And it's one of those things of, in the case of an audit, if you're not aware of that and you have deployments installed, on a large, Solaris server, for example, or VMware, and it's not segmented, potentially you can open up the door for a lot more licensing than you may not realize. And so the fact that you find a tool that takes into consideration hard partitioning policies, if you are in a virtualized environment such as VMware or one of those types of situations, and you want to go through, some segmentation, individuals like myself or others can definitely help you guide through that and establish, infrastructure with the proper procedures and policies in place that would limit that in those types of environments. So yeah, that's definitely something I'd look for in a tool for sure.
And Matt,
thanks,
you came
Matt.
across this all the time in your previous life, right? You've probably seen all kinds of mixes of customer environments. Maybe it was soft partitioning they thought was hard partitioning, etc.
Absolutely. And then instead of licensing what you thought was just one virtual component of it, all of a sudden Oracle says, okay, you have to account for the whole thing, and it's a contractual language thing, and Oracle wants to protect their IP. Mm-hmm. And so, you just making sure you're aware of that and setting things up and configuring them correctly such that when that comes, you are well aware of it and it's configured such a way that you don't have compliance issues.
And there's a question that's come up on the chat from Ellie. Is the Oracle Publisher Pack the same as the Oracle LMS scripts or equivalent, or the equivalent from ServiceNow? Yeah, so the Oracle Publisher Pack is more than just the Oracle LMS scripts. So the LMS scripts is one component of the Oracle Publisher Pack that gives you visibility of the usage and the install data for the Oracle database and its options and packs. But the Publisher Pack also goes beyond that to give you capabilities to license your Oracle estate, and some of the things that Matt and Ryan were talking about, in soft partition environments and hard partition environments, and managing your license metrics for named user and processor. So the Oracle Publisher Pack provides you comprehensive capabilities to do both LMS, managing LMS usage data, as well as your license compliance. And yeah, on hard partitioning, yeah, we support, like Matt was saying, this is one of the key things where, customers might not know their license obligations, or they might not know a certain technology is soft partition. And so, our pack accounts for whether your technology is soft partition, such as VMware, or if it's hard partition, like in this example here, with IBM AIXL PARs and Solaris zones, where we just kind of limit your licensing obligation, just based on the compute capacity being used by that, by that Solaris zone or that logical partition that's running your database. So we take into account hard partitioning as well, and limit your license obligations automatically for you. And Ryan, if you could go to the next slide. So this is an example of just how comprehensive our pack is in terms of discovering Oracle usage and discovering Oracle running on different environments. So we can discover Oracle on AWS, on Azure, on Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, and even in various virtual environments like Microsoft, Hyper-V, VMware, IBM, etc. From a licensing perspective, today we cover AWS and Azure. And on a virtual environments, we cover VMware, which is a soft partitioning sort of an environment, and IBM. So for VMware, which is a soft partition environment, we have the capability to report at the ESX level, which is the physical host that's on which your VMs are running. VMs running your Oracle database are running on, and also at the vCenter cluster level. So if you can aggregate and report on licensing at either of those levels. And if you choose to report on the cluster, we take into account all processors and every ESX server within the cluster to determine what are the minimum number of licenses that you need to buy, and also what the actual license obligation is. So a very comprehensive support across different environments for your licensing needs.
And that's pretty important, Matt. Would you say in a VM type environment, how would Oracle see it in terms of everything in the cluster?
Absolutely, yeah. You need to, depending on the versions of VMware, and if you're keeping current on them, you definitely open up the door to, instead of just having licensed one VM, potentially having licensed the entire cluster, or even more than that, depending on how it's configured. So yeah, it's definitely a hot topic for sure.
Yeah, and there's a question from Scott on the chat. So can it discover deployments in the Oracle Cloud infrastructure? So yeah, we have, so the cloud infrastructure out of the box patterns are on the roadmap, but our discovery tools very flexible, where you can take an out of the box pattern and customize it, put in a mid server on your Oracle Cloud infrastructure, and discover your Oracle databases running on it. So through pattern customization, you should be able to do that. But the out of the box pattern is something that we are tracking on our roadmap. So moving right along here to the Oracle infrastructure report. So again, this is a report that gives you visibility to all of the infrastructure that that's supporting your Oracle database. Again, just very important for you to just understand where your databases are running, what the infrastructure is, whether it's which virtual machine, which physical host, which cluster, which vCenter, and what virtualization technology, whether it's hard or soft partition. I apologize, this is a bit of an eye chart. It's very hard to see all the attributes, but this report really gives customers just a comprehensive look at the infrastructure that's supporting the Oracle estate. So you can really make decisions on, hey, is this database deployed correctly? This particular database is on a soft partition environment, and so the license obligations are huge. Do we need to run this on the soft partition environment? Can we optimize our databases here? Can we put all of them on just one vCenter, for example? So information like this that gives you details on the infrastructure supporting your Oracle databases is key. So it'll give you information to walk into contractual events, to renewals, for your contract renewals or audits, to just help you kind of supplement the information that you already have from your Oracle LMS reports and your Oracle compliance from the SAM tool.
Yeah, definitely quite a depth of information and breadth as well. And this is something ServiceNow provides, obviously out of the box, not a report you need to provide to Oracle, but it's available to you. And then, of course, partnering with a knowledgeable partner like Anglepoint and Matt's team, who can help you interpret, here's what this field means, here is why it's important, et cetera, et cetera. So all that's available.
Awesome. And let's talk about Java. So we also have the Oracle Publisher Pack also supports licensing for Java, Java Discovery, and Java licensing. As you know that Oracle made Java a paid subscription from 2019, and it's for the use of commercial features. Customers would need to purchase a subscription from Oracle. So if you're using Java in your environments, the Oracle Publisher Pack can really support you. This is an example of a customer here, EMEA based, that for whom Java was one of the big sort of use cases, and they saw tremendous software savings just from the tool, just analyzing all the different Java versions and the license obligations for Java, and being able to really realize the savings and that value from just being able to optimize their estate as far as Java is concerned. So again, value for you is being able to just get visibility into how you're using Java, and also being able to license your Java commercial features.
Pretty solid normalization too. I think this customer had 20 million assets or so, maybe a little north of that. So 98% from our content library, content services. Pretty impressive for a large company like that. Mm-hmm. And good dollars, euro savings too. That never helps. That never hurts.
That never hurts. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Rohit. So we wanted to show you a quick demo of our Oracle dashboard, mostly the Oracle scripts and LMS scripts that you can simply download and provide to Oracle. And it's intended to be, right, it's designed. So regardless of the SAM tool you may be using, the output is going to be exactly the same, because it's based on how Oracle ingests it, right? They need it in a format and files that they can ingest and run their analysis on. So that's what you'll see here. But the second half of the demo will show a little bit more about our dashboards and your standard license positions and things like that. So let's take a quick look.
Casey Kuhn, our software asset manager, wants to easily manage and have visibility into her Oracle licenses and products. First, she goes to Download GLAS Data Collection and presses the Download button. When the download is complete, she opens up the zip file. Here is a list of CSV files. Because Casey uses ServiceNow Discovery, Discovery captured all of the Oracle information that is in her environment. And with Software Asset Management compiled all of this Oracle information into these easily downloadable reports. And with this information automatically collected for her, she can be proactive about her Oracle licensing compliance. And with these files, she has everything she needs to be confident going into any contractual event, whether that's an audit or a renewal. Next, Casey wants to see other ways that she can minimize compliance risk and reduce costs for her Oracle products. She goes to the Software Publisher Analytics dashboard and opens the Oracle tab. She can also view the current true-up cost and the over-licensed amount, as well as usage for Oracle options and for database instances. But right now, she wants to see products out of compliance and see what options she has for minimizing risk and reducing costs. She opens the Products Out of Compliance widget, and from the list on the left, Casey can see that Database Server is not compliant. She expands Database Server and then expands Enterprise. On the License Metric Results tab, she is shocked by how much they are over-licensed based on the per processor metric. She can see where Database Server is installed with valid licenses and which installations are not licensed. And then going to the Remediation Options tab, she will want to remove unlicensed installs and create allocations. But she really wants to know more about why she would be so over-licensed. So she goes back to the list, and under Database Server Enterprise, she selects Per Processor. On the Rights Used By tab, she scrolls to see all of the installations. she notices only 2 writes were used for the zone for Solaris Server US1. So she wants to know why the writes used are much lower than she expected. She opens up the zone server record, and then under related items where the zone server's relationships are shown, she sees that there is 1 Solaris server and 3 virtual machines. So she opens up the record for the Solaris server. Casey knows that Solaris Zone server technology allows splitting a Solaris server host into multiple hard partitions, which are called local zones. The Solaris server hosts the global zone. So she is looking at the Solaris server US1, which hosts the global zone. And VM1, VM2, and VM3 are considered the local zones. Solaris Server US1 has 12 CPU cores, but she saw that only 2 writes were used. Oracle Database needs to only be licensed on the local zone on which it is running, rather than the entire global zone. Because the Oracle Database server is only installed on one of the VMs, VM2, and VM2 only has 2 cores, only 2 writes were consumed. This is because Solaris is an approved hard partitioning technology. And finally, because ServiceNow supports major Oracle-approved hard partitioning technologies such as IBM LPAR and Solaris Zones, by automatically discovering the virtualization technology as either hard or soft partitioning, ServiceNow automatically applies the licensing rules accurately to the type of discovered partition. And because of this, Casey trusts ServiceNow to automatically optimize her licensing, which will reduce her licensing needs and overall licensing costs during the next contract renewal.
So just to add to the demo, just to summarize some of the things that the capabilities that you saw in the demo. You saw how easy it was for just those Oracle LMS scripts, just to download them and have them available, and just get visibility into your install usage and your discovery data for Oracle deployments. And also you saw how seamless the license workbench was. It shows you information on the spend, on the over licensed amounts, and also gives you a view into your Solaris zones. In this case, the example was Solaris Zone server that's running an Oracle database, and how the hard partitioning technology automatically is detected because this is Solaris Zone server, and license the database only on those 2 CPU cores that are used by that zone that's running the database, and not the entire 12 cores of the Solaris server. So again, just the ease of use and the visibility for Oracle LMS, and also compliance with the SAM side, with hard partitioning and automatically considered, gives you a comprehensive set of tools, that gives you data on your Oracle deployments, and for your contractual events like renewals, audits, and what have you, just managing your license compliance. Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Right. Thanks, Rohit. So just to start to wrap up here, we have one more poll question, I believe. So if we can launch the poll. The question is, are any of these happening in your business? Budget cuts, upcoming, refresh or software renewal, maybe a hardware refresh even, it's going to impact your software footprint, data center changes, are you trying to rationalize apps? Do you have 10 collaboration tools when you really only need 3? Security, obviously the last year and a half or so has been a large change in where people are working from home, etc. Compliance audits we've talked a lot about today, maybe M&A, divestitures. What are you seeing in your in your organization? Matt, Rohit, any initial thoughts? What do you think will be some of the popular answers here?
I think definitely the renewals, the hardware refreshes that are coming up, and then last year with the pandemic and things like that, there's definitely an uptick in some of the activities around that. Compliance audits definitely drives some components as well. But yeah, I think a lot of what I see is around renewals and hardware refreshes and upcoming purchases.
Yeah, I would agree. I think renewals, I think budget cuts also might be something that I'm expecting, especially given the pandemic and organizations are rationalizing their budgets around that. And then of course, the remote workforce transition and changes in the economic outlook. A lot of people have now been working from home and or remotely in general. So
yeah, I'd agree. All those things. Let's see what some of the results were. So I'll put the results up here on the screen. So quite a mix. Yeah, so budget cuts, certainly top of mind. Software renewal. Of course, regarding Oracle, Matt, while we have you here, so I know Oracle's year end is coming up quick. In an ideal world, how far in advance of a renewal should customers be thinking about engaging you guys?
Oh, that's $1 million question.
Maybe a multi-million-dollar question.
Could be that as well. Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely before the last week.
Yes.
You know, it's one of those things, especially when things start coming due. ULAs, you know, it's classic. You know, sometimes we get customers reach out, be like, "Oh, we have a ULA coming due." You know, in the end of the month. You know, it's the beginning of the month, and it's like, have you already established? Do you know where you're at? You know, et cetera. You looked at your consumption, you know, to know where you're at. Like, no, and then you end up getting potentially required to renew because you haven't gotten all your data together. So, you know, the more data you can collect up front, the better. You know, to position you for those types of conversations with Oracle. You know, it's going to, you know, knowledge is power. You know, and so the sooner you can get out in front of it, the better.
Yeah, certainly makes sense. One on here I'm surprised to see lower. I would have thought would have been higher is security, but it's possible maybe SAM teams aren't yet organized, you know, in conjunction with security yet. I know in some places it's like that, but not everywhere. But curious over time if that interest ticks up, just based on all the rich data SAM and ITAM teams are sitting on. Right, you can easily, in the case of ServiceNow, workflow that to your SecOps and as well as some of your risk management teams, so that they can take action on it. So,
one thing I've definitely seen on that security point that I'll echo on that is, you know, especially around Java and stuff like that is, you know, I've seen a lot of pushing in regards to, you know, a lot of times you have a mandate, internal mandate, you know, compliance to be on the current releases of Java, various things like that, and you know, Oracle definitely is aware of that, and so you know, I've seen sales teams reaching out to security teams directly to start some of those conversations internally versus kind of coming through traditional channels or their normal point of contacts, and it is true. I mean, it's one of those things that if you have some compliance regulations that require you to be on the most current releases of Java, then, you know, most likely you're going to have a subscription for that, you know, and so that's where, you know, I think security, I've definitely seen an uptick of security driving things around Java for sure.
Yeah, you need to know where your Java is in order to secure it, right? So it makes perfect sense. All right, thanks everyone for the responses. So Matt, you want to tell us a little bit about how customers can engage?
Sure, absolutely. So the last slide was kind of nice just to kind of see, you know, what is driving things, you know, what are planned and unplanned that can pop up to, you know, have you start looking into your Oracle estate. And so, you know, through our partnership with ServiceNow, you know, we're looking to, we've established what we'll refer to kind of as a quick start, you know, a 30-day engagement. Here's something that we can come in and help you out with your SAM Pro experience, you know, things, including in this, things such as, okay, let's review your entitlements. Let's look at what your conditions are in there. Let's make sure everything's been loaded up correctly, you know, in the ServiceNow as reporting, doing some discovery health checks to make sure what we're expecting to see coming back from the measurement side. So we've hit on, you know, I mentioned earlier, 3 main topics: your entitlements, your measurement, and your compliance. You know, and so we hit the first 2, and then obviously finishing that out with the ROAR, you know, the risk and opportunity assessment report. So here's what we're seeing coming up quick, you know, from our analysis. And so in a quick, easy scenario, you know, if for example you had less than, you know, 50 contracts and, you know, a smaller environment, less than 100 database servers, you know, you could easily be under $25,000 just to get a quick start 30-day engagement. Now, is that realistic? You know, a lot of customers could be a lot larger than that. You know, they potentially want to include more products. They want to start talking about SAM as a whole. They want to do multi-publishers. enroll additional, instead of just doing Oracle only, want to, focus on the top, 2 to 3 market share or audit presence that was shown in previous Gartner slide. We can definitely have conversations around that and customize something that is specifically tailored towards what each customer needs at that point in time. And we'll have some contact information coming up here in a couple slides.
Great. And Matt, there was a question on, does this assume that ServiceNow SAM's already deployed?
So that is the idea with this, from an aspect of if you have SAM Pro in there, it's a quick way to get in and out. It has those assumptions that the majority of these types of activities have occurred or in place. And so it's saying, okay, we can knock this out within 30 days. If it's not there, then we can still have the engagement. We can still do it. It may push things out depending on how and what is established, and then also we can still, take on traditional activities and have, our normal baselines or managed service, whatever it is that is going to meet the needs. Like, I would love to sell you everything, but it's really kind of what do you need, what are you looking to achieve, and going through for that.
Sounds good. Makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. And I want to leave time for questions, so I'll try to blaze through these next couple. But yeah, I mean, very proud of both ServiceNow and AnglePoint to both be Magic Quadrant leaders from a Gartner perspective. On the ServiceNow side, we're the only ones in market with a single platform, one data model, one architecture. So we're very unique in that regard, which means we can automate that end-to-end life cycle and connect those various teams that ITAM touches and can touch, right? Whether it's talking about security, risk, procurement, application, enterprise architects, you name it. We're that's what we do, is we workflow work. And then of course the breadth and depth of experience that AnglePoint has, especially on Oracle, can't go wrong. Just to recap quickly, walk through some of the Oracle challenges, gathering your contracts, really understanding, what's in them. Contract is king, as Matt was saying, measuring, understanding your license compliance position and how you might be able to optimize that, with a product like ServiceNow and automate some of those prescriptive workflows. And, AnglePoint as that trusted advisor can help you tweak those out of the box workflows we have to make them fit your business, right? So if the way we reclaim software is different than, your business might want to do it, you can put those extra checks or approvals in place, depending on what makes sense for your organization. And then certainly if you're not sure where to start, definitely contact Matt and team, to see what's the best, so you're not boiling the ocean out of the gate. What are the low-hanging fruit you can get after in the next 30 days. Feel free to contact. You can visit AnglePoint's website, anglepoint.com/schedule. Book a call with them, 30 minutes, pretty short intro call, and learn more and see what kind of questions you have that you're trying to tackle for your company. And on the ServiceNow side, we have webinars on demand. Feel free to check those out. We'll try to get this one up as well. We'll see if we can do it. But a lot of good stuff up there, including Burns and McDonald. It was a great customer case study. Surprise, surprise, AnglePoint was the partner in that one and really helped them get to value. And so we have a few minutes for questions, maybe 1 or 2 questions. Let's see here. I think there was a question about Rohit, maybe this one's for you. Where in ServiceNow are those glass reports? Where can they be downloaded from?
Yeah, so there's a store app that's available. It's if you look for the glass reports on the store app, it'll show up for you. And once you install the store app, yeah, ServiceNow Store, you should be able to get access to. You install the store app, and you have the software asset management and discovery plugins. You should be able to use those reports.
Excellent. So if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat here. We'll try to get to them. Matt, what's the biggest Oracle finding you've ever come across? Anonymous customer, of course, but what was the kind of the root of the finding?
Oh boy, I mean, billions, low billion.
Wow. Okay.
Something from the aspect of that's definitely, that can cause sticker shock. That can definitely cause executives to lose sleep over it. And so a lot of that will come down to the bulk of that specific one was around virtualization.
Okay.
and not realizing, understanding the impact of deploying it and using, latest technologies and going with market trends and stuff like that. And so in those scenarios, we were able to remediate a large port of that, as a result of going through some segmentation activity. And then honestly, there was some in there where it was, usage, where people had started using options and packs or various things like that, and weren't aware of the fact that was going to trigger a license, and so there was a couple components in there. One was, something just from some re-architecture that had to occur within their environment to fix it, and then some of it was really having to go and buy licenses to make up some of those shortfalls. Some of it, they had to go in and say, okay, are we actually using it, and start doing some consolidation and stuff like that. But I wish I could say we removed it down to zero. There was still some remediation that had to occur within that, but you definitely do get a lot of sticker shock if you're in a virtualized environment, for sure.
Yeah, wow. I'll say the marketing DNA in me wants to say contact Anglepoint and ServiceNow to save billions, but hopefully that doesn't apply to the majority of customers. Hopefully 99% won't have that, but it's still a risk, right? And you don't know what you don't know. And so definitely want to take a close look at.
I just want to call out, Ryan, that it's and Matt, that especially if you're running Oracle on VMware, which is considered a soft partition environment, heavily virtualized, it's something to just pay attention to. Can potentially lead to some of that sticker shock that Matt was referring to.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I want to be sensitive of everyone's time. I know we're a couple minutes over, but thank you very much for joining us today. Feel free to contact us if you have questions, if you want to help, feedback, need help with something Oracle related, definitely reach out, and appreciate you joining us. I think that concludes the webinar for today. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Rohit.
Brian, thanks, Rohit. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.